Okay, welcome back for the 1.03 lesson, an excavation in action. I am Mr. Demagolf, your archaeology teacher, and I am recording from my lovely basement, where is like my pseudo office, as I mentioned before. So, an excavation in action. This is kind of like what is the first major step of an archaeologist's job is finding the site, first of all. Where are you going to find your site to dig for whatever objects, or perhaps even larger than just objects that you're actually digging for? They have to do research first. They study historical documents. They take photographs of the area. That's very important. They look at old maps. They look at old photos, and they may even look at earlier excavations of the same area. There are three different types. There is the planned excavation, there is the rescue excavation, and an accidental one. The planned one is the one I just told you about, where everything is sort of in a process, in a row. You kind of go step by step. A um, rescue site is where artifacts are in danger of being destroyed. Could be by new construction. It could be by some impending, water damage, whatever it could be. Imminent it's going to be destroyed if no action is taking place. So they have to come in and hopefully remove valuable artifacts before something bad happens. And then there's accidental, where somebody just sort of stumbles upon an amazing find, and that's called accidental archaeology. And it happens when uh, basically some non-archaeologist usually finds something, and that leads to bigger finds underneath. And there's good examples of this throughout history. The Dead Sea Scrolls, which is 800 documents or fragments of documents that were found in 1947 by a little kid. He was a shepherd boy, and he was searching for a lost animal, and he found the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is just an amazing archaeological find. Then there are the terracotta warriors. Um, these were found in, I believe it was 1974, and this is an entire army of clay soldiers, large, some as high as 6.5 feet tall. So it's an entire army that were is 8,000 is the estimated amount of soldiers. That included horses, chariots. Of the soldiers, they had different ranks. So there were some soldiers, there were some officers. They have unique features. There are a varying number of faces, but I believe it's 10 different kinds of faces that are on each different kind of statue and repeated. This was just a find by, I think it was another group of boys who found this. I think it was an 18-year-old or something along those lines. That farmers found this site, and they dug it out, and it's an accidental site. And then the cave paintings. This is in France at Lascaux. There were children that were going into a cave looking for a lost dog. It's a true story. This is in 1940, and they found this instead. They found these amazing um, paintings, which happen to be the oldest and best preserved examples of prehistoric art ever found. So you can have these amazing digs that you plan out, and you can have rescues, which are, oh God, this this building's being built on top of the site. We need to remove this very important information soon. Or you could have the accidental site. So excavations are planned and executed so they can be sound. As I mentioned in the last recording, once you dig up a site, you have ruined the site. So you need to make sure you are you have permission first. You have to get forms, permits. You have to have your paperwork in order. You have to create a map, and as you're digging, you have to make sure you're documenting everything, because it'll never be the same again once you dig it up. Now, how they do that is they use wooden frames and boxes like this, you can see. And then what they do is they divide these little frames up into units, and each archaeologist is given one of these little boxes, and it's their job to start slowly digging into the soil. The dig itself is lengthy and labor intensive. Artifacts are not, this is good from the reading, artifacts are not removed directly from the ground, but the dirt is removed from around the artifact, so you're not damaging it with a hammer or a tool in any way. Each archaeologist has a toolkit, and those toolkits can look like this. And the cell phone's there too, but you have the trowel, and that's the little like diamond shaped shovel, small trowel up there. That's used for digging, leveling out the bottom and sides of anything that's being excavated. You have hand picks, brushes, dustpans, brooms, dental picks, bamboo sticks, spoons, rope, tape measure. All these things are very important for an archaeologist toolkit. And again, you have to make a map of the site. You may have to use a compass to make sure things are like you know which way this was pointing. It was pointing north. It was pointing south. A tape measure is used to measure the area that you're working in, documenting the exact size of the artifacts that you find. So it's very, very important. All these steps are taken. And this is what you get out of a site, right? You're pulling out small pieces that may be put together later on. Everything's cataloged. You got to write down what you found, what it is, and it's recorded using its grid number and by measuring the depth or layer in which it was found. How far deep was it when you found it? Archaeologists record each detail of excavation using notes, photographs, and sketches, and then they can piece all the information together with the other objects found and kind of come to a story or a conclusion. Because everything's old, it's frail, so you got to be super careful you don't break things, if possible. You may need to use brushes to clean things off. You also may need to use what this tool is. It's just like a sifting screen. So this guy puts a bunch of dirt in it, and I'm going to move my video up so that you can see. He's putting dirt in there and he's sifting through it. And whatever doesn't fall out is solid enough not to go through the screen. That could be an artifact. Could be a very small artifact. This is the same thing people did when they were looking for gold. This is how people in the 1800s in America would go to a riverbank or a riverbed. They'd go through the water, sift through it, and hopefully there'd be a little gold, nugget because it's super worthwhile. It's very valuable. And then you have to do lab work. Now, lab work doesn't seem like it's going to be something that's as fun, maybe as being part of a dig, but you have to draw conclusions about what you find. Archaeologists classify and describe every object. They run material analysis to decide what is it composed of? Is this metal? Is this clay? What is this? Is it bone? Maybe it's not a object that we think is man-made. Maybe it's bone. And then once this is done, archaeologists they look at where the object was found, the environment around it, look for any relevant biological information. For instance, sometimes people will dig up sites and they'll say, well, there's a lot of those small bones in this area. What do you think that means? Well, that could be a place that food was cleaned. That could be a place where they disposed of their animals after they had eaten their food. It could be a lot of things. And then some objects can have indications of certain eras that you find. I'll give you an example here. So you can date an object different ways. One way is to do relative dating, which means I found this object 20 feet under the ground, and in that same level of soil, 20 feet under the ground, I found another object that I can date. I know the date that this was there, that got there. So that means this one probably is from the same amount of time, because over time the soil compacts on top of it. So relative dating is like if I find this next to a coin with a date on it, that means this pot that I found is probably around the same time. That's absolute dating, is when you find a coin and it has a Roman emperor on it, and you know who the Roman emperor is, and you know when he reigned because we have that written record. You could say this coin is from 127 AD to 131 AD because this emperor only reigned for 4 years. So you can sort of do dating that way. There's radiocarbon dating and potassium argon dating. This is more complex. Radiocarbon dating I mentioned in anthropology last semester, and for those students that had me, they may remember it. But if you're new to the course, Radiocarbon dating is that like every single living object has a certain amount of carbon 14 in them. When they die, their carbon 14 that's in their bones will break down slowly, very slowly over time. So you can go back and dig up an old bone. It's got to be like a biological thing and decide how old it was somewhat. It's not a perfect science. It's very like it's around this many thousands years old. It's not like you can get an exact date of how old this saber-toothed tiger was. And the bad side about radiocarbon dating is it has to be very old. You can't find something from 120 years ago and radiocarbon date it. It's got to be way older than that. So, and potassium argon dating is it relates to dating minerals that you find. Okay, and then this last slide that we'll go over is just about how archaeologists, the last process they have putting it all together is lab work. So once you complete the lab work and you interpret your findings, you have to write all this stuff down. And you're usually going to publish this somewhere. Maybe it's in a research journal, it could be in a book. And then you share the work that you came up with at whatever site you were at with colleagues in your, that means people in your field, or you could share it with the public if it's interesting enough. Sort of like when I mentioned in the last recording, when we found out about the um, these sites in Rome and how the concrete, the makeup of the concrete we think is actually better than today. That's an archaeological story. It's published in a major news outlet. So it's not just for other archaeologists to read, it's for like the regular public just that may find that interesting to read. Okay, that's it for this recording. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you got something out of this, and I will see you soon.